So, before I press the play button, just come across this and it is very interesting indeed, because there was a situation where there was a big budget and it looks as though the pension funds were going to lose out until the Bank of England stepped in. But just want you to watch this because it is very interesting.
This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to answer the question, will the UK freeze bank accounts? We're going to be talking about something very technical. It's called a bail-in, and many of you may not have heard about it, but this is definitely something that can happen in major economies and with major banking systems, as we're going to see. This could happen in the US, this could happen in the EU. I'm just using the UK as an example here because the UK has had this unbelievable volatility in the last few days that we've been talking about. The British bond market, as Jack Farley puts it in this tweet, the British bond market trading like a meme stock with the yields all over the place. We now know how bad the situation got on Wednesday. Pension funds in the UK would have collapsed if the Bank of England had not intervened and started buying government bonds. So they're now going to be buying £5 billion worth of gilts or UK government bonds for 13 days. This is really a switch from quantitative tightening back to quantitative easing and money printing. As I said, we now know how serious things got on Wednesday in the UK. There's a senior London-based banker who said at some point this morning, I was worried that this was the beginning of the end, adding that at one point on Wednesday morning, there were no buyers of long-dated UK gilts. In other words, there were no buyers of these government bonds. He says it was not quite a Lehman moment, referring to when Lehman Brothers blew up in the US during the great financial crisis in 2008. He said it was not quite a Lehman moment, but it got close. If there was no intervention, if there had been no intervention yesterday by the Bank of England, gilt yields could have gone up to 7 to 8% from the 4 or 5% they were trading at. And in that situation, this is very important, around 90% of UK pension funds would have run out of collateral. They would have been effectively insolvent. So their liabilities would have been much greater than their assets. So what the Bank of England is doing is they're basically jumping out of the fire. They're jumping out of the saucepan and into the fire, as the saying is. And they're printing a lot of money, using it to buy UK government bonds, which are called gilts. The problem is what happens when you print a lot of money to save your bond market. The answer is it eventually destroys the currency. The currency becomes the release valve. There's no free lunch in economics, as we're going to see in this video. If you're finding this video helpful so far, I just ask you to hit that like and subscribe button. So this is what's been happening to the pound. The pound's been getting pounded, so to speak. And even with
being destroyed
yesterday, we're seeing more weakness in the pound. We're getting a little bit of a bounce here against the US dollar, but it's quite small because everyone knows that the Bank of England is printing money to buy these bonds. Could things get worse in the UK? Absolutely. But first we have to explore some terminology, the difference between a bailout and a bail-in. So a bailout is when a government or some other outside investor, like a Viper, like Warren Buffett, give the bank money to make up for a shortfall. This is what happened. We had the US bailouts after the great financial crisis of 2008 to 2009. Warren Buffett was one of these people who provided money to back Goldman Sachs, for example. So this is outside money coming in to make up for a shortfall when a bank is essentially insolvent. A bail-in is even worse because the money is stolen directly from savings and checking accounts by the government, by the banking system, by the central bankers, and depositors are given in exchange for having their actual cash stolen. They're given crappy IOUs like stock in the failed bank. So the question then is, can something like this really happen? Well, it has happened already in Europe. It's happened in Cyprus, and they had bailouts. They had a sort of a combination of a bailout and a bail-in 2013, where their banking system was insolvent. They were able to get relief from the ECB, but in return for this, in exchange for this, they had to haircut everyone's savings accounts. And so if we read what's inside this article, this is how it worked. People in Cyprus, this was 2013, Cyprus, People in Cyprus with less than 100,000 euros in their accounts had to pay a one-time tax of 6.75%. So they just took the money off the top before you could pull the money out. Those with greater sums will lose 9.9%. Depositors will be compensated with the equivalent amount in shares in their banks. So this is what happened. If you had more money in the bank, you got even more penalized in total depositors in the bank.
47.5% of savings.
Cyrus lost 47.5%
Wow.
of their savings. And again, this was not invested in stocks or crypto or something. This was cash in the bank. So they stole depositors' money to help make the bank
my
solvent.
Lord.
And this was in a major, very civilized country like Cyprus. So Cyprus had this bail-in in 2013, but you could argue, well, they were at the mercy of the EU. They were unable to print their own euros. The UK can at least print its own pounds. Cyprus is also a very small island. As we said, it's a small economy. So then the question is, would a major country like the UK actually perform bail-in for their banks if things
I hope not.
Or is this just some YouTuber's wild conspiracy theory? Well, I owe this video to Tur Demister. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He had a very good thread a day or so ago about bail-ins, and he has some amazing references in here, one of which I could not believe my eyes when I saw it. This is a publication from the Bank of England. You can go to the website. I'll stick it in the description notes below. Executing Bail-in, an operational guide from the Bank of England, published in July of 2021. So if you scroll down here, you can see in this publication, the bankers write, today, bail-in is a recognized part of the toolkit of stabilization powers available to the bank and other resolution authorities. Bail-in means we can be more confident that banks will be able to keep critical services operating through resolution and restructuring. So this is the central bankers telling you that stealing your money from the bank can and will be used if it's necessary.
Wow,
again,
man.
Or
that is not good news.
Republic. This is the Bank of England. This is an actual publication by them. And so if bail-ins could never, ever happen in the UK, then why has the Bank of England written a manual on how to do it? A very extensive manual. It's 45 pages, pretty full of technical jargon. So I think we can conclude the Bank of England, if things get bad enough, stands ready to confiscate your savings if things get too bad. So here's the game. This is how it works, not just in the UK, but the US and everywhere else. While you guys are busy arguing passionately about Labour versus Conservatives, or Democrats versus Republicans, or the left versus the right, what you'll notice is, and this is always the case, both parties are busy supporting the central bankers, supporting Wall Street, supporting investment bankers, and doing their will. That's who they really work for. They work for the central bankers. They do not work for the people in most cases. When was the last time, for example, that you heard a successful politician criticize central bankers? It's very, very rare. The biggest example I can think of would be Ron Paul, and that did not turn out great for his presidential run. So I think it's important to remember this, especially in crisis times. Your government hates you. Your government does not care about you. You are just a pawn on the board. Your central bankers view you as energy pods, like in the Matrix, and they view your savings accounts as energy pods that can be drawn on and drained to whatever extent they need to stabilize the bank. Now, you'll often hear people say, oh, I'm never buying Bitcoin because it's not good for anything. I'm never buying Bitcoin because it's too expensive.
Wow, man. That should shake you to the core. 2021. Gordon Blemon Bennett, man. You know, I put forward a plan to London, and I never heard anything about it. And, you know, this guy, will the UK freeze bank accounts? Published on the 29th of September this year. But what you've just seen, that was from 2021. Wow. Crazy, man.